The unexpected encounter. The Titan's Wrath, the largest and most powerful warship in the human fleet, drifted silently through the vastness of deep space. A ship designed for battle, it was built to protect humanity's interests, but no one could have predicted the journey that awaited it. For months, the crew had been on routine patrol, exploring the outer regions of known space, far from the bustling centers of the galaxy. The crew had been on edge, awaiting any sign of alien life, but nothing had come. It was as if space itself was empty, silent, waiting. Then something changed. Captain Elias Carter stood on the command bridge, staring out into the void. His sharp eyes scanned the data feeds as usual, but today there was something different in the air. The crew of the Titan's Wrath had noticed it too. The sensors, once calm, were now picking up strange signals, weak, irregular pulses that didn't match any known patterns. At first, Carter thought it might be a malfunction, but as the readings grew stronger, he knew it was something more. "Captain, you need to see this," Lieutenant Maya Hall called from her station, her voice steady but tense. Carter walked over to her console. "Report," he said calmly, though his mind was already racing. Lieutenant Hall tapped a few commands, and the data displayed on the large screen in front of them. The signals were unlike anything they had ever encountered. A series of pulses, rhythmic but chaotic, flickered across the screen. There was no code, no pattern of communication the ship's computers could decode. "What is it?" Carter asked, narrowing his eyes. "We don't know," Hall replied, her fingers moving over the console. "It's not a distress signal. It's too deliberate, almost like someone is trying to get our attention." Carter's mind raced. It wasn't unusual to find strange signals in space, but this was different. The pulses were too consistent, too targeted. Whoever, or whatever, was sending these signals was trying to reach them. The question was why. Carter turned to his communications officer, Lieutenant Jace Reynolds. "Send a response. Standard communication. Let's see if we get anything back." Reynolds nodded and began typing, sending a basic greeting to the source of the strange signals. The crew waited in silence. Minutes ticked by, and just as Carter was about to suggest they move on, something unexpected happened. The signals stopped. For a moment, there was nothing but the eerie silence of space. Then, the silence was shattered. A massive ship appeared on the Titan's Wrath's sensors, too large to be any known species, yet incredibly close. The Titan's Wrath was caught off guard. The alien ship had somehow arrived within their range without warning, its sleek, dark silhouette emerging from the shadows of the asteroid belt ahead. It had the shape of a warship, sharp, angular, with vast wings of dark metal stretching out in all directions. There was no doubt in Carter's mind that this was not a ship meant for peaceful exploration. "Red alert. Shields up. All hands to battle stations," Carter commanded, his voice firm. The crew scrambled into action, moving quickly to their stations, prepared for anything. The alien ship was now within firing range. The Titan's Wrath was ready for a fight, but the enemy was unlike anything humanity had ever faced before. This ship was not just a vessel. It was a behemoth, dwarfing the human warship in both size and firepower. The tension in the bridge was palpable as Carter stood, watching the alien ship approach. Its movements were deliberate, slow, as if it had all the time in the galaxy. The alien ship did not make any moves to communicate. Instead, it simply hovered, its powerful engines emitting a low hum that rattled the Titan's Wrath. "What do we do, Captain?" Hall asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Carter paused, his mind racing through the possibilities. There was no diplomatic protocol for something like this. No guidelines, no treaties, no history, just the unknown. He had one choice. "Get me a direct line to them," he said, his voice firm. "We need to talk. If they're going to attack, we need to know why." Reynolds worked quickly, tapping commands into his console. The communications line was established, but instead of the expected alien language, The message that appeared on the screen was chilling. The words were simple, but the tone was unmistakable. You have violated the sacred space of the galactic order. Surrender or be destroyed. The words hit Carter like a punch to the gut. The galaxy, with all its vastness, had been silent for so long. Humanity had only just begun to make its mark on the stars, and now it seemed they had made a terrible mistake. But the worst part, the message carried with it the weight of an ancient power, something that seemed older than the human race itself, something that had been waiting in the darkness. This is Commander Elias Carter of the Titan's Wrath. Carter spoke into the comms, his voice steady despite the tension building in his chest. We are a peaceful species. We have no intention of aggression. Please, we need to talk. The alien ship did not respond immediately. The seconds stretched out, each one feeling like an eternity. Then, just as Carter was about to repeat his message, a new signal appeared on the screen. A massive energy pulse shot across the void, aimed directly at the Titan's Wrath. Brace for impact, Carter shouted, as the crew scrambled to their stations. The blast hit with a deafening roar, shaking the entire ship. The Titan's Wrath's shields held, but the energy reverberated through the vessel. Carter was thrown to the ground, his heart racing. The entire ship groaned as it absorbed the impact. Status report, Carter demanded, struggling to get back on his feet. We've taken damage to the forward shields, Hall replied quickly. But we're holding, Captain. We're still intact. The tension was now unbearable. The alien ship was clearly no friend, and the message it had sent was clear. Humanity's first contact with an alien species wasn't going to be peaceful. It was a warning. And now, the crew of the Titan's Wrath had to decide what came next. Would they fight, or would they surrender? Only time would tell. And the galaxy, it seemed, was watching. The Titan's Wrath trembled as the alien energy blast rippled across its shields. The bridge was a scene of controlled chaos. Alarms blared, warning lights flashed, and the crew scrambled to adjust to the impact. Captain Elias Carter gritted his teeth as he steadied himself against the command console. His heart pounded, but his voice remained firm. Damage report. Lieutenant Maya Hall's fingers flew across her console. Shields down to 72%, Captain. No hull breaches, but another hit like that, and we'll start taking real damage. Carter exhaled sharply. This was no warning shot. The alien vessel had fired with the intent to destroy. First contact had become a battle. Do we have any idea what kind of weapons they're using? He asked. Jace Reynolds, the weapons officer, studied the readings. It's some kind of directed energy weapon, but it's different from anything we've seen before. The energy signature doesn't match any known tech. If I had to guess, I'd say it's... Another blast rocked the Titan's Wrath. The ship shuddered, and several consoles flickered as power surged through the systems. Sparks flew from an overloaded panel, and the emergency lights cast an eerie red glow over the bridge. Carter clenched his fists. We can't just sit here and get torn apart. Fire defensive cannons, he ordered. Reynolds nodded, his hands moving swiftly. Firing now. The Titan's Wrath unleashed a barrage of railgun rounds, each shot propelled at near-light speeds. The slugs streaked through space, glowing hot from the frictionless acceleration. They struck the alien warship's dark hull with deadly precision, but instead of explosions, the slugs simply vanished. What the hell? Hall muttered. The shots didn't even leave a mark. Carter narrowed his eyes. Some kind of energy field, or advanced armor. The implications were chilling. Humanity's most powerful kinetic weapons were useless. They're charging weapons again, Hall shouted. Brace for impact, Carter roared. The next energy blast struck harder than before. The ship groaned as its shields absorbed the hit. But this time, the power flickered. Sparks erupted from overloaded circuits. The lights dimmed for a second before emergency power stabilized the systems. Shields at 41%. Hall's voice was urgent now. Carter took a deep breath. Think, damn it. We're outmatched. We need a new strategy. His mind raced. If our weapons don't work, what does? Then an idea hit him. A reckless, dangerous idea. Helm, prepare for evasive maneuvers, he ordered. Weapons, load EMP warheads into the missile launchers. Target their power systems. The bridge crew looked at him in shock. EMPs were a risky move. If they worked, they could disable the alien ship's energy-based systems. But if the Titan's wrath was caught in the blast, they'd be stranded as well. Captain, if this doesn't work, Hall started. It'll work, Carter cut her off. We don't have a choice. Fire on my command. The alien ship fired again. This time, the Titan's wrath dodged. The massive human warship, despite its size, twisted sharply to the side, barely avoiding the energy blast. Carter felt the inertia pull at his body as the ship's artificial gravity struggled to compensate. Now, fire the EMPs. The Titan's wrath launched 2 missiles. The warheads raced toward the alien vessel, leaving faint ion trails in the dark void. For a brief moment, nothing happened. Then, a blinding pulse of electromagnetic energy erupted in space. The alien ship's dark hull flickered. The eerie glow surrounding it sputtered. The ship lurched, its movements no longer smooth and deliberate. Something had changed. Direct hit, Reynolds shouted. Their energy field is unstable. Carter saw his chance. Charge the plasma cannons. Aim for their engines. The Titan's wrath's forward cannons glowed an intense blue as they built up energy. Carter could feel the crew's tension. This was their only shot. The plasma cannons fired. 2 massive streams of superheated energy slammed into the alien ship's propulsion system. This time, the result was immediate. The ship buckled under the impact, its engines erupting in a violent explosion. A shockwave rippled outward, shaking the Titan's wrath once more. For the first time, the alien warship was crippled. Silence filled the bridge. The once invincible enemy now drifted, damaged but still operational. Carter didn't know if they had won yet, but one thing was certain. Humanity had just landed its first blow against an unknown force. But the battle wasn't over. Captain, Hall said quietly, staring at her screen. Carter turned to her. What is it? She swallowed. They're sending a message, and this time, it's not a threat. A strange alien voice crackled through the speakers. It was deep, guttural, and unnervingly calm. You are unexpected. The cycle must be reconsidered. Carter frowned. The cycle. What does that mean? The alien voice continued. We will return. Prepare. Then, without warning, the alien ship vanished. One moment, it was there, damaged, flickering with energy. The next, it disappeared into the void, leaving only the silence of space. The crew of the Titan's wrath stared in stunned silence. The battle was over, but something far worse had begun. Carter exhaled. Get me Fleet Command. We need to warn Earth. Because if that alien ship was just a scout, then humanity had just made enemies of something far bigger. The Titan's wrath hung motionless in space, drifting like a wounded giant. The crew, battered by the surprise attack, was silent, each member processing the events that had just unfolded. Despite their victory, a sense of unease loomed over the bridge. No one spoke, but everyone felt it. An alien force had just appeared, and they were far from being finished with humanity. Captain Elias Carter stood at the front of the bridge, his hands clasped behind his back, eyes scanning the expanse of stars outside the viewport. The sight of the alien ship disappearing into the void lingered in his mind. The battle was over, yes, but he knew it was only the beginning. Report, he said, his voice steady, but the weight of his words wasn't lost on anyone. Lieutenant Maya Hall quickly responded. We've sustained significant damage, Captain. The shields are down to 25%, and several of the plasma cannons are offline. We've also lost some secondary systems. Communications are still working, but the backup power's unstable. Carter's mind raced. They were damaged, but nothing critical. The crew was alive, and that was what mattered most right now. How long before we can re-establish full systems? Carter asked. We'll need at least 6 hours for repairs on the main power grid and another 4 to get the cannons back online. It'll take a bit longer for the shields, Hall replied. Understood. Keep me updated. As Hall returned to her station, Carter's gaze fell on the communication officer, who was still working furiously at his console. Anything from Earth? Carter asked, though he already feared the answer. Nothing, sir, the officer said grimly. We're still on a tight communications blackout. Our signals aren't getting through to the planet. Carter nodded. Of course, Earth would be in the dark about what had happened. Humanity was isolated up here. And the longer they remained out of contact, the more they risked alien forces growing bolder. He rubbed his chin thoughtfully. This was no random attack. The alien ship was too advanced, too precise. It was part of something bigger. But what? Captain, we got a signal coming in. Reynolds, the weapons officer, called from his console. Carter turned toward him sharply. From where? Not sure, Reynolds said. It's a long-range transmission. It's a strange frequency, unusual modulation. We're still trying to pinpoint the source. Carter's eyes narrowed. The alien voice they had heard before. It had been too calm, too cryptic. Open it up. Let's see what they have to say. The screen flickered, and a strange, distorted image appeared. It was a humanoid figure, tall, with dark skin that shimmered with an almost metallic sheen. Their face was obscured, but the voice that came through was unmistakable. You are still too weak, the voice said, calm yet filled with an unspoken warning. You cannot win. The cycle is beyond your understanding. You will fail, but you will also learn. The transmission cut out abruptly, leaving only static behind. The bridge was eerily quiet. What the hell was that? Reynolds muttered. Carter's fists clenched. The words haunted him. The cycle is beyond your understanding. Was this an alien race simply toying with them, or was something deeper at play? That didn't sound like a standard threat, Hall said, her voice tight with apprehension. Carter nodded, his mind whirling. I agree. It's something else, something bigger. Sir, we're picking up another long-range signal. The communications officer interrupted. This one's different. It's not from the aliens, but it's definitely human. Carter's heart skipped a beat. Source. We're narrowing it down now, but it's coming from the Sol system. One of our stations, I think. Good, Carter said, breathing a sigh of relief. At least we're not entirely alone. Get me a direct link to Earth. Working on it now, sir. The officer's fingers flew over the console, but there was a hint of frustration in his voice. It's still being blocked, Captain. The signal's too weak to break through the interference. Carter's brow furrowed. Something was wrong. Keep trying. I need that link up now, he ordered. And let me know if we get any updates on the alien ship's movements. A tense silence fell over the bridge as the crew worked to try to make sense of the messages, the warnings, and the unclear threat that still loomed over them. The atmosphere was thick with uncertainty. The Titan's wrath was far from safe, and the victory they had celebrated just moments ago now felt hollow. There were too many unknowns, too many questions without answers. But one thing was certain. Humanity was at the forefront of a war that it didn't fully understand yet. Carter's eyes drifted to the stars once again, the cold void outside mocking him with its vast, endless expanse. The aliens had retreated, but they would return. And next time, humanity would need to be ready. In the meantime, they had no choice but to wait. The transmission from Earth was their only hope for understanding the alien threat. As the crew continued their work, Carter remained standing at the helm, his mind focused. The fight was far from over. And soon, the true test of humanity's strength would begin. The hours dragged on, each one feeling longer than the last. The Titan's RAF was floating in deep space, its massive hull scarred from the brief but intense encounter with the alien ship. The crew had worked tirelessly on repairs, but the true battle, what was coming next, was still unclear. The aliens had retreated, but they hadn't been defeated. The captain could feel it in his bones. This was just the beginning. Captain Elias Carter stood at the bridge, hands clasped behind his back, staring at the stars through the viewport. He was restless, pacing the length of the command center. His mind was still processing the message they'd intercepted earlier, the cryptic alien voice and its chilling words. "You are still too weak. You cannot win. The cycle is beyond your understanding." What does it mean? Carter thought aloud, his voice low and heavy with uncertainty. The crew continued their work around him, the soft hum of the ship's systems filling the air. But no one spoke. No one had an answer. "Captain, we have a new signal," said Lieutenant Maya Hall, her voice cutting through the silence. Carter turned toward her immediately, hope rising in his chest. "Is it from Earth?" "Yes," she replied, nodding as she worked quickly at her console. "It's a secure transmission. I've managed to break through the interference." Carter's heart skipped a beat. They'd been waiting for this. The transmission from Earth would be humanity's lifeline. If Earth had found anything at all, that could help them understand the aliens, it could make all the difference. "Patch it through," Carter ordered, his voice urgent. The crew's eyes fixed on the main screen as the image flickered into view. The static cleared, and soon a figure appeared, a man in a military uniform, his face tense and weary. Behind him, the background was a dimly lit room filled with monitors, and a large digital map of Earth's solar system could be seen on one of the screens. "Captain Carter," the man began, his voice trained but clear. "This is Admiral Jameson of the United Earth Fleet. I hope you're receiving this message." The crew remained silent, hanging on every word. "We've been monitoring your situation closely. We've seen the evidence of the alien fleet's movements, and we've gathered some intel. But I'll be honest, Captain, what we're dealing with, it's beyond anything we've ever imagined." Carter leaned forward, eyes narrowing. The alien threat had seemed bad enough. But now there was a sense of urgency in Admiral Jameson's voice. What was worse than an alien fleet that could wipe out humanity? "The alien fleet that attacked you," the Admiral continued, "is part of a much larger collective. They'd been hiding in the depths of space for eons, watching us, learning from us. They know about Earth. They know about our defenses. And they're waiting for us to make a mistake. They have technology beyond anything we can currently understand. Our military intel suggests that these aliens are not just invaders. They're part of something far bigger and far older." Carter's pulse quickened. The last part of the message was a chilling one. The aliens weren't just an isolated threat. They were part of a vast, ancient empire, and Earth wasn't even on their radar until now. Jameson's expression became even more serious. "We've managed to intercept one of their higher command messages, and it's something you need to hear. It might give you a clue about their intentions." The screen flickered, and a new transmission appeared. The voice that spoke was not the Admiral's, but rather an alien voice, distorted and metallic. The words were slow, deliberate, and filled with an almost unfeeling authority. "The cycle has begun. Earth is the next step. Humanity is too dangerous to be left unchecked. They will either submit or be destroyed. The choice is theirs." The transmission ended abruptly. The room was silent. Carter's mind raced. The cycle has begun. He couldn't help but replay the message over and over in his head. What cycle were they talking about? And why was humanity so important to them? "What the hell does that mean?" Lieutenant Reynolds muttered from his station. "We need to figure that out," Carter replied, his voice tight. "There's something bigger happening here, something that's been going on for far longer than we've realized. Earth isn't just a target. It's a piece in some larger plan. but we don't know what that plan is yet. Admiral Jameson's image flickered again on the screen, and his voice returned, this time with a grim tone. Captain, I'm afraid there's more. We've sent out fleets to patrol the outer reaches of the solar system. We don't know what they're preparing for, but our intel suggests they're closing in fast. The alien fleet you encountered is just the vanguard. They'd been sending ships into our space for years, and now they've made their move. How long do we have? Carter asked, his throat dry. We've got maybe a few weeks. They've taken positions across multiple star systems, including areas just outside the solar system. We're mobilizing every ship we have left. But the timeline is short. If we can't make contact with you soon and get some kind of breakthrough, the situation could turn into an all-out war faster than we can prepare for. Carter nodded, trying to process the flood of new information. His crew was still recovering from the last encounter. They were strong, but they were stretched thin. What could they possibly do to stop a war with a species that had centuries, if not millennia, of technological advancement? Understood, Admiral. We'll keep you updated, Carter said, his voice firm. Thank you for the intel. With that, the transmission ended, leaving the bridge in a tense, suffocating silence. Carter took a deep breath, turning to his crew. All right, people. We've just received our orders. It's time to prepare. We have a limited amount of time, and I don't intend to waste it. The crew immediately sprang into action, each member knowing what had to be done. Weapons were checked, communication systems tested, and the ship's defenses were reinforced as much as possible. But despite the preparation, Carter couldn't shake the feeling that they were preparing for something far beyond a simple battle. The cycle has begun, he whispered to himself, his mind racing. And Earth is at the center of it all. Outside the Titan's wrath, the stars were still. But Carter knew the calm was only temporary. The true storm was coming, and humanity would have to face it head-on. There was no turning back now. The Titan's wrath floated in the cold silence of deep space, but inside, the crew was anything but calm. After receiving Earth's transmission, Captain Elias Carter knew that time was running out. The alien fleet wasn't just prodding them. It was preparing for something much bigger. And now, they had a chilling message. The cycle has begun. Earth is the next step. Humanity is too dangerous to be left unchecked. Carter stood at the center of the bridge, staring at the holographic map of the surrounding systems. Red markers blinked like warning beacons, each one representing an unknown alien ship detected at the edges of human space. The enemy wasn't coming. They were already here. We've detected movement from the alien fleet, Lieutenant Maya Hall reported, her voice tense. 3 ships just appeared outside our sensor range, and they're not moving away. Carter narrowed his eyes. They're watching us. Reynolds, the ship's weapons officer, let out a low curse. We should hit them before they hit us, Captain. They already think we're a threat. Why not prove them right? Carter shook his head. Not yet. If we fire first, we'll be giving them the excuse they need to go straight for Earth. He turned back to Hall. Any response from our diplomatic channels? She hesitated before answering. No. We've been broadcasting non-aggressive messages, but all we've received are cryptic replies. She tapped a few controls, and a distorted alien voice filled the bridge. Humanity must make its choice. Surrender or be consumed. The word sent a chill down everyone's spine. Carter clenched his fists. That's not a negotiation. That's an ultimatum. Hall nodded grimly. And we don't even know what consumed means. Before Carter could reply, an alert blared across the bridge. The red lights pulsed, and the ship's AI spoke in a calm, mechanical voice. Warning. Massive energy signature detected. Source. Unknown. The crew jumped into action, hands flying over controls. The main screen flickered, revealing the vast darkness of space. Except now, something was different. Something massive was emerging. At first, it looked like a shadow stretching across the stars, but as it moved, the Titan's sensors picked up its size. It wasn't just another alien warship. It was a capital ship, one larger than anything humanity had ever seen. "My God," someone whispered. The ship was a fortress in space. Towering spires jutted from its hull, and glowing blue veins pulsed like living circuits along its surface. Strange, shifting symbols ran along its body, and a deep, unnatural hum echoed through the Titan's Wrath's comms. Lieutenant Reynolds' voice was sharp. "Captain, that thing is the size of a small moon." Hall's face went pale. "It wasn't on our sensors before. It just appeared." Carter's mind raced. The message from Earth had warned them that these aliens were old, ancient, but now he understood the true scale of what they were facing. This wasn't just another war. This was something else entirely. "Captain," Hall called out again, "we're receiving another transmission from the alien flagship." "Put it through," Carter ordered, keeping his voice steady. The screen shifted, and an alien figure appeared. Unlike before, this one wasn't distorted. The being on the screen had a tall, elongated head, dark blue skin, and 4 piercing, glowing eyes. Its armor was sleek and organic, as if it had been grown rather than built. It stared at Carter for a long moment before speaking. "You do not understand what you are interfering with, human." The voice was deep and calm, but behind it was an unshakable authority. "Your kind was never meant to last. This is your final warning." Carter squared his shoulders. Humanity doesn't take kindly to threats. The alien tilted its head slightly. "This is not a threat. This is inevitability." Carter's eyes narrowed. "If you think we'll just surrender, you don't know us at all." The alien remained silent for a moment. Then it said, "Then your fate is sealed." The transmission ended. For a moment, there was nothing but silence on the bridge. Then the AI spoke again. "Warning. The enemy flagship is powering weapons." Carter turned to his crew, his voice steady. "Shields up. Prepare for evasive maneuvers. We're not going down without a fight." The Titan's Wrath's engines roared to life, and the battle was about to begin. The final test for humanity had arrived. The Titan's Wrath trembled as the alien flagship charged its weapons. A low, pulsing hum vibrated through space, growing in intensity. Every sensor on the ship screamed warnings. This was no ordinary energy buildup. This was a planet killer. "Captain, their main cannon is at 90% charge." Lieutenant Hall's voice was urgent. "If they fire, we won't survive direct impact." Captain Elias Carter gritted his teeth. No time to hesitate. No time for fear. "Weapons, lock onto that flagship's power core," he barked. Reynolds' hands flew across the console. "Locked in, but our cannons won't break their shields before they fire." Carter turned to the engineering station. "What about the void lenses?" Chief Engineer Patel looked up, sweat beading on his forehead. "They're experimental, Captain. Never been tested in real combat." Carter's expression was grim. "Then now's the time to test them." Patel hesitated, then nodded. His fingers danced over the console, rerouting power. Deep within the Titan's Wrath, hidden systems activated. Technology humanity had kept in secret. A new warning blared across the bridge. "Enemy weapon at 100% charge. Firing in 10, 9, 8. Hall's voice was sharp with panic. "Captain, fire void lances," Carter roared. The Titan's Wrath shuddered as 2 massive lances of pure energy erupted from its hull. Unlike conventional weapons, these weren't just beams of light. They ripped through space itself, distorting time and gravity around them. 7, 6, 5. The lances struck the alien flagship dead center. At first, nothing happened. The monstrous vessel's shields flared. But then, they shattered like glass. A ripple of unstable energy spread across the alien ship's surface, its blue veins flickering wildly. 4, 3. Then, the flagship lurched. Its charging weapon faltered, flickering out as its power core destabilized. A deep, unnatural groan echoed through the void. The countdown stopped. The doomsday cannon never fired. A second later, the enemy flagship exploded. The shockwave burst outward, tearing smaller alien ships apart. The Titan's wrath rocked violently, but its reinforced shields held. Silence fell over the battlefield. Then, static crackled across the comms. A voice, distorted and weak, came through. Impossible. Carter exhaled slowly. The impossible had just happened. Humanity had struck back. But the battle wasn't over yet. Beyond the wreckage, the remaining alien fleet reorganized. The loss of their flagship had stunned them, but now, their formations tightened. They weren't retreating. They were getting serious. Hall scanned the battlefield. "Captain, they're sending reinforcements." Hundreds of new red markers flooded the display. Carter's jaw clenched. It was only going to get worse from here. The Titan's wrath hovered like a colossal titan in the vast void of space, its massive form now scared from battle, but still brimming with raw power. Captain Elias Carter stood at the helm, his eyes fixed on the starry horizon, as the alien fleet reformed before him. The battle, which had started as a chaotic shock, was now a test of endurance. The enemy fleet was multiplying by the second, and humanity's chances of survival seemed increasingly slim. "Reynolds, what's the status on our weapons?" Carter asked, his voice calm despite the gravity of the situation. Lieutenant Reynolds, his fingers dancing across the control panels, grimaced. "We've taken damage. Our energy reserves are low, and the Void Lances are still recharging. We might be able to fire one more, but after that, we're out of options." "We can't afford to miss," Carter muttered, then turned to Lieutenant Hall. "What about the rest of the fleet?" Hall's voice was tight with strain as she looked over the communications board. "They're holding their ground, but we've lost half of our supporting ships. The enemy fleet is sending wave after wave. We're severely outnumbered." Carter felt the weight of leadership pressing down on him. His crew was brave, but there were limits to what any ship, no matter how powerful, could withstand. They were fighting not just for survival, but for the future of humanity in the galaxy. The stakes had never been higher. "Tell the fleet to hold position," Carter ordered. "We fight together, or we die together. We're not retreating." A murmur of agreement echoed through the bridge. The crew was ready. They had come this far, and they would not falter now. The enemy fleet closed in. Hundreds of alien ships, vast and strange, surrounded them. The black void of space was filled with the hum of distant engines and the crackling of weaponry as the invaders prepared for the final assault. "Captain, they're deploying their boarding craft," Hall said, her voice sharp. "They're going to try to board us. They'll be here within moments." Carter's mind raced. The Titan's wrath was designed for space combat, not for hand-to-hand fighting with alien invaders. But the thought of surrender was unimaginable. There was only one option: fight. "Ready all defenses," Carter ordered. "Prepare to repel boarders. And the moment those Void Lances are ready, we fire on their flagship. No mercy." "Understood, sir," Reynolds confirmed, his eyes locking with Carter's. There was no fear left in them, only determination. As the alien ships closed in, Carter stood, fists clenched. This was it, the final stand. The first wave of enemy ships broke through the Titan's Wrath's outer defenses, their massive forms tearing through the weakened shields. The sound of explosions and chaos filled the air as the boarding craft hit the hull, sending shockwaves through the ship. "Boarding party on Deck 3. They're coming in," a crew member shouted. "Get the Marines ready." Carter barked, watching as his command team sprang into action. The ship's interior shook violently as the first set of alien invaders breached the hull, pouring in with ferocity. Armed with alien technology and weapons far advanced, they moved fast and brutal, intent on taking the ship by force. A loud explosion rocked the bridge, causing the lights to flicker and alarms to blare. A breach had occurred. They're inside the hull. Lieutenant Hall yelled, fighting to stay in control of her station. Hold the line, Carter ordered. This ship belongs to humanity. We will not fall here. The sound of battle rang out across the corridors as the Marines engaged in close-quarters combat with the alien invaders. Every second was a fight for survival. The Titan's wrath was designed for space warfare, not for this kind of brutal, up-close combat. The crew had to adapt quickly. Void lances ready, Captain. Reynolds called from his station. Carter didn't waste a moment. Fire. The remaining void lances shot forward, two beams of devastating energy tearing through the void at light speed. They collided with the alien flagship in a cataclysmic burst of energy, causing the massive ship to explode in a shower of debris. For a brief moment, the battlefield was filled with flashes of light and debris. But the battle wasn't over. The alien fleet regrouped, enraged by the loss of their flagship. Carter wiped the sweat from his brow as he turned back to the comms. We've made a dent, but they're still coming. The Titan's wrath won't be enough to stop them all. We need more time. Just then, a transmission crackled through the comms. The voice was weak, but unmistakable. Captain Carter. The voice said, "This is the Starborn fleet. We've come to help." A flood of relief washed over Carter. The Starborn fleet, an alliance of human colonies that had been hidden in the far reaches of the galaxy, had arrived. They were not the massive fleet the aliens had expected. They were survivors, and they were ready for war. All ships target the remaining enemy vessels, Carter shouted, his voice full of renewed strength. Humanity stands together now. Let's finish this. The Starborn fleet charged forward, joining the Titan's wrath in a final desperate push. Together, they fought back, their combined might turning the tide. The alien ships, now facing the full wrath of humanity's strength, began to retreat. One by one, they were destroyed, their massive forms breaking apart under the pressure of the human onslaught. But Carter knew that this was just the beginning. Humanity had proven itself capable of fighting back. They had taken on the impossible and survived. And they would never stop fighting.